Hi, Eric.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm doing well. Doing
Is it a
well.
bit early for you, or is it okay?
No, 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 it's fine. I get up early in the morning. So
Oh, okay. So you already had half a day of work done.
I've already been out here working on the next Shinedown record for about 3 hours. So
Oh, is it secret? The new Shinedown record, or can I
no,
ask?
no, no. We've talked about the fact that we're working on it. Yeah. And we're releasing a couple of songs this week or next week maybe. I guess it's next week. I don't remember when, but it's coming. It's coming.
No, but that interferes then with your own project a bit.
A bit, yeah. I mean, it's look, we have no agenda in the band, if that makes any sense. I mean, we just, it's time for my record to come out. It's coming out. We talked about the fact that it was the timing of everything and what it was going to be, but yeah, the Shinedown record itself won't be released for, probably till the middle of the year. So it's just a couple of singles. So um, we just I don't know. I guess maybe we should have thought about it a little more, but it is what it is. So
It's okay. Well, then, well, focus on your own album, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
How long? Because well, I've read some interviews and I've done some research. But I know sometimes with research, well, you don't know if you have the right source. So that's
Yeah.
maybe my research isn't that good, but we'll see. How long has the album been in the making?
The album has been finished. How about this? I finished the last mix like 2 days or so before Brent and I started writing what would become Planet Zero. So it's been done.
I
It's been
know.
done for a long time. Yeah, I started working on it during the Attention touring cycle, actually.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's been done.
And
It's been done for quite some time.
what was your trigger? What triggered for you to well to actually write to write the first song for your own album?
Yeah. It started as a concept for a graphic novel, and it's a story that I've continued writing and will be put out later this year. Um, and I just at some point it's like writing a book isn't hard enough. I had to make it more difficult by writing music to go with it, I guess. But I don't. It just called to me to do, and I began to sort of, you know, think about how much fun it would be to maybe write a rock opera or something that goes along with this story that I've been writing. So, I honestly don't remember what the first song was, to be honest with you. I don't remember what the initial uh, uh, it may have been the first the second song on the record, "New Gods of War," might have been the first thing that I worked on for it. But if I had to remember, if I had to think back, that seems like it's right. But lyrically and everything, it kind of came later. I worked on a lot of the music up front, and then sort of fell into the lyrics. And that wasn't the case for all of the songs. I mean, some of the songs I worked on lyric and music and everything all at one time. But when you're kind of trying to get your footing underneath you about what something's going to be creatively, as a musician first and a lyricist second, I not naturally gravitated toward the music. I wanted to kind of know what the music was going to be, and yeah, the music just ended up being all of these different pieces of my musical psyche. But I really the intention was to not to give it too much direction. Like I know it was going to be rock centric, metal centric kind of thing because that's what I'm into. But um, you know, I just I just launched off on this thing, and when I had a few song ideas formulated with melody and music, I went to Brent and I said, "Hey, are you ready to start writing a new Shinedown record? Because I've got these things that I'm working on. They're a bit different, which would be cool for our band as well. But and he was like, "No, I'm not ready to write right now." So I just went off and turned those songs that maybe would have been Shinedown material into something of my own.
Well, you say when you started writing the story, what was the first persona that you had?
So it's a bit, it's not an odd story, I guess, meaning of how it happened. But some people will understand this, some people won't understand it. But if you've ever had this happen to you, you'll know what I mean. I was sitting in a hotel room in Italy on tour for Attention, and uh, I had just gotten finished with a workout, and this voice spoke to me that isn't my voice, and it just said, "You might want to write this down." And I began writing down honestly what is the prequel to the story that I wrote. So but it was a foundation that I absolutely needed to have. I didn't know at the time that that was going to be the prequel. Um, I wrote about this character named Jeff, Jef, just one F, but and kind of his backstory and who he is. And when I got to the end of sort of writing an outline of his story and what it would, and it came very quickly. I just started just. It's pretty insane the way that all these this world building just happened very quickly. And but when I got to the end of his story, I'd put a few more characters around him, and some of those side characters seemed more interesting to me as a place to start. And but Jeff is still a character in this story. He's still in the record, and uh, but I there's a character named Azalea, which is the song Azalea is about her. There's a character named Milk, who is a 12-year-old boy who has grown up in a prison camp and a work camp and doesn't remember what his real name is, and that's thus the title of the record. I Had a Name, um, and Milk is his nickname. Uh, but I started toying around with these other characters and who they were, and they called to me more than maybe Jeff did. Jeff's story is super interesting and it's integral to the plot of everything, and all of that will be revealed in storytelling. But it's and and actually our villain Devarin, who is the character in the mind control song, uh, and in that video, he was there originally as well. He was always part of that backstory as well. Um, so if I had to guess, like Jeff and Devarin are kind of the two main things that where this started, and then it evolved into to involve other characters. So.
What can you share about the whole story, or is it just up to the listener? Or
So in the record is chronological. It is running from beginning to end, but it's not telling the whole story. It's sort of snapshots and scenes from the story. A lot like I write, music that's not for my record. It's the same thing we do in Shinedown or anything else that I'm writing is I take snapshots of experiences I've had or things I've been through and I write I paint a picture of that and that's the song. And so I just naturally did the same thing with this. I'd never set out to kind of tell the story in through this record. Um, but the crux of the story is that I'll try to make it as concise and as understandable as I can. It's very involved. It's a very and not that I'm comparing myself to Tolkien or anything like that or George Lucas or something like that, but it is a very intricate story in that way. There are a lot of characters that don't appear on the record, and there's a lot of story in there. I've been some of the people that I've had involved with me in the story are like, this is too long. It's too this. I was like, I don't care. I don't care that it's too long. It's just I enjoy things like that. I enjoy in-depth storytelling. So,
yeah,
um, but we basically live on a world called Par. It's Par. And it was once ruled by these three kings and their families. And those kings became complacent as the generations grew. As it went from one king to another. And um, there's an element on this world called the Dreg, and um, the dread kind of permeates everything. It's all of the negativity on this world manifests itself. So rather than just hateful thoughts being hateful thoughts, they will actually manifest into this element called the dread. And the kings needed a way to combat that, and they created these beings called Dark Eaters. And there were five Dark Eaters. There were these titans that protected this world from the dread, so to speak. Um, Eventually, the kings get overthrown by this character Devarin because again the kings became complacent. They stopped worrying about the people. They started worrying about themselves and their fame, and they're very much like our own governments do. And Devarin convinced the people they needed to rise up and very much in like a communist revolution, Iranian revolution type of way. Um, but as we see with those things don't go very well either, do they? So, Devarin gets in power. He doesn't want to give it up. Um, and so basically, we catch up with these kind of two groups of people. Azalea, who is a former, she grew up a very religious warrior monk, very powerful, her and her family. But she's the last of her line. They've all been killed by Devarin, and when her mother was killed, she swore to seek revenge, and she became an assassin. And we kind of begin part of the story with her. We also begin the story with Milk, our character. He is in and he is actively living in a work camp for kids that on the outside, Devarin disguises it as an education facility that all the children are required to go to. And then when the kids get there, he separates them into these are the kids that I can educate, to be part of my regime. And these kids I have no interest in, and I'm going to send them off to a work camp. And so the parents have no idea that the kids are in a work camp. They have no idea that even exists. So in essence, we end up, through these characters, we end up they end up fighting for their freedom and the freedom of the world they're on. So that's a very man, there's a lot of detail in there that you're missing, but that's kind of the world we're in this record. We're in this world where these children are fighting for for freedom, where the populace is like in the song Mind Control, is being mind controlled to an extent to not really feel like there's anything wrong going on. But these kids who are living the reality of what this person Devarin has done to this world, they're wanting to fight back, and so that's kind of the world we fall into in this record, and yeah, and that's the world we're going to live in for the first, well, for most of the graphic novels I'm going to release are going to be lived in that world. So,
Is there a character that you feel more connected to yourself?
man, I've said this in other interviews. It's rather astonishing what happened when not so much in the story, but in the record. Um, as I was writing these characters in the record and writing lyrics about their experiences and who they are and what makes them what makes them tick and what their flaws are and what their fears are and their strengths and all of these things. I realized at some moment that I had probably written the most autobiographical thing that I had ever written, whereas I'd written this that I'd written myself into every single one of these characters and every single one of these, even the villain, just you know, and how each part of these characters are a piece of my brain, a piece of my psyche, my depression, my neurodivergent things that I deal with, and again my strengths as well. Um, so when I look at all of them, it's kind of hard to pick just one that I identify with because they all feel like me. But uh, look, Milk, the main our main protagonist, he's 12 years old at the beginning of the story. But there's an awful lot of me wrapped up in that kid, man, and just in how he views the world and the things that he longs for. He's an idealist. I'm very much an idealist. You
Mm.
know, um, uh, he's battling a sort of a childhood he feels like he lost and he never got to have. He has missing memories and that sort of thing. I'm not saying I had a wonderful childhood. I didn't battle anything like that, but there are pieces of, again, I go back to the neurodivergent part of my brain and the fact that I didn't really know I was dealing with these things when I was a child. I was fighting every day internally. Again, my parents were wonderful people. I had a great upbringing, so that's not. I have to
Yeah.
make sure I say that.
Yeah.
But I I absolutely dreaded going to school, and I absolutely dreaded coming home at night for different reasons. I dreaded going to school because I never did my schoolwork, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand why I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the work, and I couldn't make myself do it. It's a very strange thing. It's a very strange concept. Um, and I knew I was going to be in trouble when I got to school the next day. I hadn't done my work. I hadn't studied. And I just dreaded it. And then I would dread going home because I knew I was going to be in trouble when I got home because I hadn't done my work. But I had no solution for anything. But at the time, as a child, I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't know, and I didn't know till I was much older. What had happened and why that was the thing. Um, so elements of that, in this character of Milk, you know, uh, so yeah, man, I kind of, I'm sort of drawn to that character for sure.
Well, I read somewhere that you had a religious upbringing. What sort of upbringing was it? And did
Yeah,
it?
my parents were and well, my mother's still alive, the Methodist. So uh, um, uh, so we I grew up in the church and grew up going to church and that was also not a it was not a bad thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, I grew up in the church; it was terrible," and it wasn't a bad thing. Um, I didn't at the time. Again, much like with the neurodivergent part of my brain, I don't think that had anything to do with it. But I didn't really know why I was there. I was like, I was there, and it was not a bad thing. It was a great foundation, probably in a lot of ways, to learn right from wrong and this sort of thing. But um, the pomp and and methodology of being in a church and stand up and sing this and sit down and then stand up again and then sit back down and it's like these are just things we did. I didn't know why we were doing these things. I'm just there because I'm required to be there. And so when I got the second I got a chance to be away from home, when I turned 18, uh, I stopped with all of that and completely threw it. Didn't throw. I can't say I threw it away, but I just did not pay attention to it. I don't think I ever didn't believe that there's a higher power, but I never paid attention to it, and I never did anything to cultivate any sort of relationship or anything like that with God or anything. So, but then I find myself in my older life now coming back to it, and then that's also in the story as well,
Yeah,
in the story of Azalea. So. Um, but it's different, man. It's different when you discover it for yourself. I've
yeah, I
discovered
know.
I've found faith for myself, and now I understand the things I didn't understand. I'm beginning to understand a lot more. I still
When
don't go
did
to church, but
when did you find that fate, and when did things in hindsight? I mean, the church concept, God concept. When did you find it out for yourself? Was it some
yeah.
special?
So I had it's not a long story, but I can go into it if you want. It's um so uh my father became very ill very quickly. He was older. My dad passed away at 85 years old, and it is very old. But you have to understand something. My father at 84 years old was still working 40 hours a week on a construction site. Like he wasn't a carpenter by trade. He'd been a naval commander. He graduated from the Naval Academy. He had two master's degrees. Uh, he'd started some businesses. He had retired, and at the time when he retired in his 60s, I was working in construction. I was a trim carpenter. I was putting stairwells in houses and molding and kind of the very artistic sort of carpentry. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, you're bored. Do you want to come work where I work?" And so he did, and continued to work there. And he had just had a physical. The doctor said he was 84, but he had the body of a 65-year-old. Like he was in shape. He was carrying doors, putting doors in houses, and at 84 years old, very just tip-top shape. And um, I was so fast forward to a couple of years ago, uh, uh, I built some. I live on an island here out near the ocean, so I paddleboard that I do a lot of paddleboarding, and I was putting some paddleboard racks out here at the house, and um, I was like, "Oh, I should see if Dad wants to help me do that." He was off work for a week after Christmas, and I was like, I should see if he wants to come help me put these in, and I was like, nah, he's taking a week off. I'm not going to call him. And I walked out of the door of the studio here, and this voice just stopped me. And it wasn't really a voice, it was spoken to me. It was like a download, if that makes sense. Like I got a lot of
Yeah,
information very quickly. But in essence, what it said was, you're going to want to call your dad and have him come help you because things are about to change. And I thought it was odd. It was that same type of voice about writing the story down,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Same thing. Uh, it was very definite. It wasn't there wasn't a question like maybe. No, it was like you call your dad, you're gonna want this time. So I did. I called him. He's like, "Oh, I'd love to come help." And he came out and he helped me. And we worked on we poured cement and put the paddleboard racks in. We worked all day together. And he got in his car or in his truck and went home. And 2 days later, my mom called frantic and said that he'd had a seizure or a stroke, or she didn't know what was going on. And I knew, man, the second that she called me, because it was like 11:30 at night. And he's on, she had called 911. He was on the ground. She didn't know what was happening, didn't know if he was dying, what was happening. Um, in that moment, I knew that's what that message was about, you know. And so that was kind of the first thing that I was like, wow, that's odd. And so we went through this year of my father being sick. Um, we were fortunate enough to be able to keep him at home, and have caretakers come help and keep him there. But eventually it just caught up with me. He had another massive seizure at some point and never left the hospital, never came out of the hospital. I was blessed enough to be there when my father passed away, with his whole family around him, which was amazing. Brent Smith, our singer from our band, was there. He was, um, it was just a very unique experience. But then fast forward to his funeral. I thought about speaking at his funeral, and but I wasn't sure I was going to. I ultimately decided to, and I ended up
Mhm.
speaking for 25 minutes, which was an awful long time. I didn't mean to speak that long, but I just got up there and just started talking about my father. And I had an outline. I wasn't just randomly speaking. But as I'm standing up there in the church that I grew up in, uh, I just had this thought about, like, this is, you know, almost like I was supposed to be there, supposed to be doing that sort of thing. And again, something you have to understand about me is this sort of nudging back toward faith had been going on for a few years, even prior to my dad. But it's not something I wanted. I don't want to be a Jesus freak, man. I don't want to, I don't want this thing on me, like, you know, I mean, I was just pushing it away and pushing it away and pushing it away. I'm in a rock band. What am I, like I'm not
Yeah.
supposed to, like, I enjoy, the drinking whiskey and doing the whole thing and the rock star life. And um, so that had been happening. I had been getting these kind of nudges. Um, so I spoke at Dad's funeral. I had that feeling as I was in this a pulpit that I mean, it's just very, very odd juxtaposition, I guess, for me to be in a pulpit speaking in a church, but it felt very good. It felt great to be talking about my father in that moment, in that place. And then 2 days after his funeral, I walked into my closet in my bedroom. No special moment, nothing special about it. But this again, that voice. I got this. I mean, and the thing is, man, I cannot stress it enough. I'm not looking for these things. They're just happening, you know? And it said, hey, it was like, hey, that next thing in your life that you've been looking for, that purpose, because I've had to struggle with purpose, even though I do something very fun and something I enjoy,
Yeah.
I struggle with purpose. And he's like, the voice is like, hey, that thing, purpose you're looking for, well, it's in faith, it's in this, and it's here whenever you want it, but nothing's going to change for you until you address this, and man, I mean, in that moment, it was like, no, I like literally, I'm like, no, I don't want that. Like, that's not what this is. It's like, I mean, I can't tell you how hard I fought it. Like, I just don't want this. Um, so again, I told you this wasn't gonna be a long story, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Fast forward to being on the next tour. The band went out on tour. I think it was probably one of the last tours we did for. Well, no, we were on tour 3 days grace in the States. So whenever that was. And so some people know this. A gentleman by the name of Josh Sturm uh, will fill in for us every so often. Like, if I'm injured, he'll come play bass with the band. If he did a European tour with us when Zach was when his wife was having a baby, and Josh is Lacey Sturm, formerly of Flyleaf. It's her husband. So Lacey's husband, Josh, and they're very faith-filled people. And he came out to see us play in Pennsylvania, which is where they live, and we were just hanging out in the room, and I was telling him about this thing that happened with my dad, the story I just told you. He knew about my father passing away and everything, but I told him about the walking into the closet and hearing this all this stuff, and he goes, man, he's like, well, it sounds to me like the Holy Spirit's calling you, and I'm like, that made me feel funny again. It's like, did you just say Holy Spirit? Like, that's like something from my childhood that that's what adult Christians say, and it's like, oh man, what is this? I don't want this. And but man, Josh is always a great sounding board, and he's always great at listening. And um, so uh, a couple of days later, I think it was the next day, we had a day off in Huntington, West Virginia, and which is, you know, kind of I'd never been to Huntington before, I don't think. We had 2 days off there, and I said, okay, I'm going to buy a Bible today. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy a Bible today. And I looked up, bookstores, Christian bookstores, Barnes and Noble, whatever, and nothing. There's nothing around. We're in the middle of downtown, the downtown area of Huntington, which isn't large, but it's a little tiny city area. Um, and um, so I was like, oh well, I'll get it on the next day off. I'll figure it out. So I wandered out to go find lunch. I found a comic book store. And again, this kind of ties back into the graphic novel a little bit, but I love comics and Star Wars and toys and all that stuff from my childhood, right? And so this place, and I walked in there and I bought some comics for a buddy of mine who's helped me with a lot of things. I bought him some really nice, cool comics and some vintage stuff. And I'm looking around at the toys in this place, and I turn, and in the middle of this comic book store, it's a shelf selling Bibles. I mean, like, come on, man, I'm in a comic book store, you know? And it was just like, this is what it's supposed to be, So I not there. I don't believe in coincidences, and not anymore anyway. I used to. Uh, I bought a Bible, and I've been on this sort of silent journey within myself, ever since. And it's helping me with a lot of things. I got a lot of things to learn about it. Faith is very difficult. It's maybe one of the hardest things I've ever done in that, you have to choose to believe things that are unbelievable. And my scientific brain and my way of thinking for a lot of years fights back against that a lot. And but I will say this, man, I find a lot of joy in it. I've found a lot of friends in my sphere who I can call on and rely on for that. Josh being one of them. And I don't think these people will mind me talking about it. Clint Lowry from Seven Dust is one of those people. Jacoby from Papa Roach is one of those people. Um, we don't lose our rock and rollness because of this. I'm learning that pretty quickly, and that's nice, because it's like you just find a different way to live internally and externally, and maybe you become a light for people to see, and that you know you can reflect a light that is from God that you can show other people, and maybe it'll change lives. So um, that's been my journey so far. I'm by no means perfect. I've by no means figured it all out. Um, but yeah, so
Oh, it's an interesting story because, well, the clip and the song Mind Control.
hmm
Um, if you just read the lyrics and you don't know the whole story with the characters.
hmm
And I was thinking at first, well, maybe it's about your own challenges with religion, with church.
yeah.
But well, you've shared the story now, so I was thinking, well, maybe it's something else. So that's why I was thinking, what is the church reference in that song? What is your meaning by it?
Oh, in mind control.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the end of the song where it's which lyric in particular?
I wrote down, well, of course, well, the first lines that I was bought and sold when I was nine
Yeah,
years old. They beat me like a drum. Well, it's that's a lyric that really
yeah.
hits you like a drum, you know? Yeah.
I don't want to give too much of the story
Okay.
away by kind of giving you what that what
Okay.
that
Okay.
line means. That line actually has nothing to do with my religion, which is good.
Okay.
Uh, um, the religious struggle stuff in the story is really through Azalea because she was brought up in a religion. It's a religion called Voog,
Mm-hmm.
and she the mothers teach the daughters all the way down the line, and um you know the Sinvug, who are the sect of monks that are on this world. I call them monks. They were that's the best way to describe it, I guess. But they were protectors of this world along with the Dark Eaters. And so when the Dark Eaters were overthrown, the Sinvug were also overthrown and killed. And but some of them escaped, and Azalea's mother was one of those people. But eventually, Devarin found her and killed her, and basically leaving Azalea as the last one. She's it. And in that moment, all these terrible, tragic things have happened to her and to her family and to everything else. And now her decision that she makes in that moment as when her mother's killed, she's 18. In that moment, when that takes place, what does she make? She makes a decision that a lot of us make, which is, well, why did God do this to me? Or why, there must not be anything in my religion at all. I'm going to get revenge on everyone who did all of these things to me. And we catch up with her in the story when she's about 22 to 23 years old. It's a few years after that, and she's just neck deep in this assassin business that she's in. And um, you know, we're gonna watch her. I'm not gonna give any story points away, but I think we're gonna watch her uh, mature about
Yeah.
that and find her way back to the thing that to her faith, and so that's sort of the faith journey part of the story for me. The Devarin, look, Devarin represents, if he represents anything, I talk about the autobiographical side, he represents the depression that I deal with. Like there's this thing, like what I was talking about the story before about how, we had these kings and these protectors in the Dark Eaters, and it was this, and then this force comes in, this guy Devarin and all of his people come in and overthrow this protection that the world used to have, and now he takes over and it becomes very dark. And so if I have to think about what happened with my depression is I didn't always have this. I dealt with the neurodivergence, and I think that has a lot to do with my depression, a lot to do with it. And that's actually helped me understanding that because I can just much like my faith, it gives me tools to work on the depression. But Devarin represents the depression, and but there's this. Even he feels like he's being controlled by something, and that's why you get to the end of the song. He's having this
Yeah.
reflective moment of like, why am I doing this? Why am I? It's almost like he's having this moment of clarity, or he's getting some information from another place of like, yes, he's mind controlling everybody else, but there's something in control of him as well, and he regrets
Regrets.
doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
He has these moments of
Yeah.
clarity and regret,
Yeah.
of so
And I think
and so
that's
and so and so and so the bought and sold when I was 9 years old and beat me like a drum. That's alluding to Devarin's past as a child. Like he was not treated well when he was a child. So
yeah. I think well the song ends. I mean the clip ends in a in a way that's not maybe his clarity and maybe he has remorse about
hmm
what he's
yeah,
done.
he definitely has these moments of that, and you'll see that in the story as well because he's very maniacal. Like don't get me wrong, like in the story he's very uh he's not conflicted all the time, but there are these moments when he's by himself, when
Yeah.
when all is said and done, and he he gets these, I guess, much like what I was talking about earlier. He will kind of get these downloads of like, you know, uh, of the fact that he is in the wrong, and look, we'll find out in the story where that comes from and why that's a thing. But I love complex, conflicted villains a lot of the time, but I love complex characters, especially villains. So.
Is it for you? We talked about purpose. We said, your search for a Bible and now reading it.
hmm
Can you say that this project has also given you more purpose than maybe in life?
Yeah, for sure. Uh I don't have any children, right? My wife and I don't have any kids. I'm the only one in the band that doesn't have any children. And so really, honestly, man, at the end of the day, I've got my work. I enjoy what I do. Um, but so yes, it absolutely gives me purpose. The danger of that, though, that I found, and this is where the faith comes in, is uh, I have a tendency, it's not even a tendency. It's the way that I'm wired is that my self-worth gets wrapped up in these things, like my how I treat myself, how I talk about myself, the way I think about myself, it's is one interesting thing about whatever goes on up here is that, you know, uh for me, success is the lowest measure of yeah, that's like success is the lowest bar, you know. So anything lower than success, I'm going to beat myself up over because all of my being is tied up in everything that I do. And so where does that leave me to go? You know, success is the lowest marker of acceptable achievement, you know. Um, then anything lower than that is going to make me feel less than and terrible. Um, so while it gives me a lot of fulfillment, and it does give me a lot of purpose. Um, I've had to start realizing that having all of the if the success of what I do isn't a marker for looking at myself positively, and that's where faith has helped as well. So I'm trying to find balance in these things. I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if I'll ever find
Well, I
balance
think
in.
if I listen to your talk and share what you're saying in the story, in the story that you've written, I think there's a lot
Hmm.
of yourself, like you were saying.
Hmm.
I think also a lot of wisdom. And I think maybe that's sharing that with people. I think that might be a purpose too. Do you know what I mean? On a
Yeah,
one-to-one.
yeah, 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 absolutely. And I think so. So if you go back to remember what I when I said I was standing in my closet and I had that download of like, hey, that next thing you're looking for, that purpose, it lies in faith. And
Yeah.
um, uh, I think that was very real. I think that was very true because I have been looking for. Look, something amazing happens, and I wish that everyone could experience. I really do. And some people, and even if you just experience it in your own world, it can be really helpful. But I wish everyone could experience being successful in the thing they set out to do, because I've been successful in the thing that I set out to do. The only thing I ever wanted to do was be in a famous, since I was 12 years old, I wanted to be in a famous rock band, and I wanted to tour the world and get on a tour bus and go do all of these things. And what you realize is when you catch those things and you achieve them, you realize that that's not what life is about, you know, because you spend all of your time trying to chase money and success and all of these things, and then you get them and you feel like the same person. I don't feel, I feel like there's just, wait a second, I should feel fulfilled. I should feel fulfilled right now. And I always feel like there's something else. Look, Shinedown is a huge purpose of mine, and I'm going to continue to make it a purpose. I love the people I'm in a band with. We are really a band of brothers, and it can only be the four of us, for better or worse, whatever that means. As much as we annoy each other or whatever, you know, no one's going anywhere. But I still feel like there's a another purpose for me, and so what you're saying about me being able to talk about these things and you know, finding the courage to talk about them as well, and writing this story and making this record, and that gives me a platform to do these things. I really think that is a purpose of mine going forward,
Yeah.
and um, so and honestly, there is a great deal of fulfillment in that because if I have to if I have to think about it, you know, what did I say earlier? I said that when I'm making music up to this point, and it still is this way, man. I'm still having trouble with it. Those two Shinedown songs that are going to come out here in the next few days, I've been battling the mixes on those, and I didn't get one of them quite right, and I just beat myself up about it, man. I felt awful, just depressed, just terrible, you know, because the what's success is the lowest bar for me. Well, when it comes to anything faith-based or let's just or wisdom based, right? Just passing on things to people. You can't win that. There is no like that's not there's no
Right or wrong?
right or wrong or like a measure of success. You know,
Hmm.
it's like you just pass it on to other people. And so there is a great deal of fulfillment in that because um, all you can do is spill your guts and tell people what your experience is, and what they take away from it is what they take away from it, which is how art should be, by the way, which is how music should be. And I shouldn't think about it like a contact sport, right? You know, it's not a football game.
No,
It's
it
a
isn't. But it's
yeah.
well. This I have to well finish the interview
Mm,
because of the time. There's one question I have. you have the comic, the graphic novel. I mean, you have the
Yeah.
album, you have your video clips.
Hmm.
I mean the videos. What if a big Hollywood producer knocks on your door and says, "Well, I'll give you a new purpose. You want to make some big blockbuster movie." I
Yeah.
think it has all the ingredients. I think.
I think so. You know, I've been very protective of the intellectual property with this, and exactly, you know, being sure I retain any sort of rights to everything. You know, I don't. Again, it's why I'm putting the record out by myself, like on my own, rather than through a record label and that sort of thing. I don't. Um, you know, I hopefully it would be fun. It would be interesting. Um, and who knows, maybe, you know, maybe not even in my lifetime. It might be something that 100 years from now somebody discovers this story and decides to
But
make something
who?
out of it.
Last question. Who would you want to play?
Who would I want to play?
Yeah, in your own,
Oh,
if it's a blockbuster movie, because I think
yeah.
the role that you have in Mind Control, I think
Yeah,
it's a good role.
I mean that's the most telling one. That's Devarn, right? I play the villain in my own creation. That should be enough psychology 101 for everybody
Yeah.
right there. That's the one. Honestly, man, like I felt I felt very comfortable in that role, you know, and I know it's just a music video, but I would I don't know if I could give him enough angst and conflict and be conflicted enough, but I'd love to try. That would definitely be the one I would go with. So,
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Really enjoyed it.
hey, thank you so much for the interview, man. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. This has been fun. You're the first person that I've talked to about faith on any of my interviews. So,
Oh, okay.
I
No, but I think it's really interesting because, well, like you were saying, I see many fate references in the of many, I mean, in the clips and stuff. So,
yeah,
and it's also something that well intrigues me. One thing that I would like to ask you, can
yeah,
I ask you one or two questions about the new Shinedown songs, or is it?
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what are the what can you say about the songs, song title, and what are the songs? When are you?
Yeah, so the first song is a song called 365, and Brent and I wrote that song about well, we really wrote it about a lot of the stuff we just talked about. We wrote it about my father's death. We wrote it about so I've had something we didn't talk about is aside from my father's illness, we had my sister-in-law had cancer and lived with us for a long time, and she passed away. My aunt who was basically my second mother, passed away. My mentor, Doug McKean, passed away. This all happened within about a 2 year period. All this death took place. And so we wrote this song called 365. This is about, you know, 365 days. And, the hook of the song is a lot can happen in a year, you know? And so, the song means a lot to me. It just really like there's a lot of personal stuff tied up in that song. The other song is there's a heavy rocker called Dance Kid Dance, and that song is about how as a society we put kids on a lot of uh, pharmaceutical drugs, you know. And so, at least in America, we do for sure. You know, a lot of antidepressants and Ritalin and things like this, and so and that's by the way, that's one place that I was fortunate as a child is that we're talking about I was diagnosed with what was just termed as ADD back in the 1970s when I was diagnosed with it, but there was no H in ADHD. But
Uh,
they wanted to put me on Ritalin, and my mother said no, which I'm really happy she didn't. At the time, again, me being a kid, I wasn't sure, how to navigate those waters, but anyway, so that's what the two songs are. I think Dance Kid Dance is it's a really good rock track, man. It's like super heavy and slamming, and 365 has a lot of heart in it, much in the way that A Symptom of Being Human and Second Chance and songs like that do. So we're super excited about it, man. And those are the first two. We have a lot of songs. I would say I mean, we were just tracking yesterday. Um, uh, I would say we're probably. Uh, 2/3, well, maybe even more than that, 2/3 of the way through making the record at this point. We're just not sure of a release date for it. It will probably be later in the year, July, I would imagine, somewhere around in there. That's just an arbitrary guess, but
And well, and the first two songs they are released, you have set dates for them.
yeah. They will be out. I can't give exact dates on that right now, but it'll be shortly. It'll be
Okay.
in the next it will be before the end of January. How's that?
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, soon. Last question. Do you already have an album title, or is it still in the?
We've thrown around some album titles, but
Okay,
nothing concrete. No.
so we have to wait then.
Yeah.
Thanks for this information too, and
Yeah.
well, enjoy talking to you, Eric.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it very much, man. Thank you for your time. All right.
Yes.
Take care.